So I would say October is one of those transition months where we are getting ready for what's coming. Inevitably, it's the holidays. And I don't know what it is about these past 2 days. Today is Tuesday, October the 14th, but you guys are probably gonna see this maybe 2 days from now. This week has already been super stressful, and I see it on everybody, I feel it on everybody, and I personally feel it, see it, sense it, perceive it, process it. I remember that last week I was battling physically my back issues, right? And I thought that was the most pressing thing I had going on at the time. But now I am dealing with the remnants of those symptoms. I would say my back is at a good 80% right now, but my sciatic nerve has been hurting the worst it's ever hurt. It's gotten a little bit better, but not by much. And I thought, okay, I got those physical issues going on. Now I have a new physical issue, which worries me a little bit because I'm wondering why it happens a certain way. Like I've been noticing a pattern with this one, and I don't like the spot I'm feeling it at. So then I say, okay, this is a sign that I have to chill out and slow down and take it easy and be more careful and gentle with my body, right? But then psychologically at work, when I think about being part-time, but being part-time with long hours, and how the schedules ahead, they're more of the same thing, except that I have stretches more often, say working more than 2 days in a row, and how that is causing me to fall behind. I'm thinking my physical breakdown makes sense because I went from being fine to not being okay. And when I think about it, there's that factor that's common, which is I just don't get the rest days that I need. And you may think, well, try being full time. No, I don't need to try being full time because I am beyond full time. I have a part time job, but I also perform work on the side that I don't even get paid for immediately. I'm planting the seeds for the potential of me getting paid in the future. So, in a sense, I put over very easily 60 hours of work per week, but I'm not necessarily being compensated as someone who's putting in 60 hours of work. My payment is potential in the future. It's something that I have to accept and acknowledge, and I don't expect everybody to understand it, especially if you don't do it. But to me, this was not a burden. And I remember it wasn't a burden when I had a better schedule at my primary job. But these past few days have been so bad that I had the impulse to write myself a little note. And when I wrote it down, I knew this was going to be a future video. And what I wrote was, a stressed mind doesn't learn as well. Or alternatively, it doesn't retain information as well. And what I mean by that is sometimes I get a little offended or upset by my managers because I'll tell them something and I know they have a lot on their plate. I acknowledge it. Even I, as someone who doesn't have a lot of side stuff in my mind, I understand that what is the consequence of having a stressed out mind. But I can tell you that the way this thought occurred to me was at work. I was hanging out with one of my coworkers who is into Japanese things because she has Japanese heritage. And I was excitedly sharing with her how there are some cool channels that I tune into. And I was trying to recall the things that I have learned. And I was telling her, it's at the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. I know I've seen this, but I'm just having trouble. And then she would mention something, and then that's when I could finish the thought or add a little bit of a detail. And she had shown me some things written down, and I said, that is so easy. There is no way I'm going to forget that. I tried to summon that memory, that knowledge from my memory bank, and I just couldn't do it. and I'm not someone who struggles to learn or remember shit. And then with my managers, sometimes I'll tell them something, say first thing in the morning, as soon as I get there. And let's say that it's something that needs action within the hour. The hour passes and I see no action. I will gently remind them and they'll be like, all right, I'm on it. And then some bullshit happens and they have to delay responding to my matter for a little longer. And I'm like, okay, I understand, I get it. But then sometimes it comes a point in the day in which they dead ass do not remember that we had this conversation. And another example I can supply is that I had taken some of my breaks and my managers were like, did you take a break? And I'm like, did you forget that I disappeared for half an hour and that you saw me at my preferred break time spot? One of them admitted that they just have a lot of things in their mind that they just dead ass forgot. They couldn't remember, despite it being marked on the clipboard, too. And I find that really sad because I feel like at the end of the day, the things that we do, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And I don't mean this to say that the work that we do is not important, because by definition, I would say everything everyone does is not important. I'm just saying that I can't help but look at this as those are invented problems. The fact that we have, say, retail stores, that is an invented problem for the purposes of supplying people with stuff. But it's not like we're being provided with this stuff because this is measured. You only get what you need. You show up and whatever is served to you, you just take it and go. It's you have the freedom to choose whatever you want, as much as you want, as long as we have it in stock. And maybe you do need this stuff, maybe you don't need it. It may be good for you, it may be bad for you, but nothing is stopping you from getting it. And because of that, other people may have the same plan as you. They don't get to it because unfortunate timing, I guess. But then there are some people who live with a sense of dependence upon this stuff that we have. And if that didn't make much sense, let's think about our housing. Yes, we do need shelter and protection from the elements. But living in a place like this is an invented problem because you have to respond to things like city ordinances, respond to the upkeep of the surrounding area, say when it snows. I'm responsible for shoveling down my portion of the sidewalk because if someone happens to slip and fall, that's going to be my fault. I also have to maintain things, report things that need fixing, and if I don't do so in a timely fashion, something may need deeper repair, and that's going to result in the inconvenience of having people coming here to work on that, and they're going to be noisy, they're going to be invading my personal space, I'm going to be at the mercy of their schedule. And finally, another invented problem is something like cars, vehicles, driving, because we had to invent a roadway, we had to invent the rules for it, we had to invent the consequences for it. And God forbid something happens, you collide with someone else or you collide with something, you have to replace this thing because technically you can't really get by in an affordable way without a car, because I think that Ubering everything is much more costly on the long run than you having your own vehicle and not having to schedule when something happens. You just get on the car and go. But you could have that independence taken away from you because maybe when you destroy your vehicle in an incident, you may not be able to afford to immediately jump on another one, especially if it's your fault. And God forbid if someone gets hurt or someone dies, or you need medical assistance, which that will lead to another invented problem, which is we don't believe that healthcare is a right. Therefore, while you get fixed up, you gotta sort that out with your job. You gotta sort that out with your household because this is going to affect other people if you don't live by yourself. And if you live by yourself, I would imagine that's even scarier because you're your own plan A, B, and C. And I'm just saying, those things are like micro pressures in your mind because I'm not thinking about the stress of medical stuff or not having a vehicle as a result of a wreck, but I'm just saying that every time I drive, I'm aware that there is that risk. And because of that risk, I try to maneuver the best I can, avoiding that stuff, which everybody should do. But I just hate that that is a stress that feels like an app in my brain that I have open in the background and I can never close it. I cannot ever rest from it unless I'm not driving for prolonged periods of time. So when it comes to work, I think about how when I take time off, I'm like, I feel great. Physically, I'm recovering. Mentally and emotionally, I'm refueling. I can feel it. I can feel my powers coming back to me. But then the first day going back, all of those things that stimulate you, that trigger a stress response, because everything is a stressor, is just varying levels, different kinds of stressors. You're back to that, and then you're piling up whatever miscellaneous stuff is associated with being an adult. And it's just really sickening. I can understand why we get chronically ill so easily because we're just not equipped physiologically to answer to so many things triggering stress responses within us. And when I'm at work, I feel like that's when I'm most aware of that because I'm experiencing that with everybody. And when I am on my off time and I try to think about what just happened, where I just came from, I'm like, that really doesn't matter because if that were gone, everything will be okay. Even if it mildly changes some things or inconveniences some things or some people, say for me and my buddies, it would be we have to relocate to another job because we need the money. But say if you were to take that out, the environment is really not going to care. The environment is going to continue just the same. And say, when I think about if this place were to be blown away by horrible weather, in the end, the environment is going to continue. It'll continue to thrive and flourish because the fact that this is our shelter in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter because there are alternative methods for shelter. But this just happens to be the one that we have agreed as a society that we ought to have. But if we were to leave this place undisturbed, like say, don't rebuild anything over here, don't perform landscaping in this area, nature is just going to try to claim it, try to grow and thrive in this area. We don't let it thrive because of the machinery that we use and what we do to keep the environment looking the way that it looks. And sometimes I try to imagine as non-humans who don't understand what's happening, what are these stressors like in animals? Because to be a wild animal already, that's stressful as it is because you just don't know where your next meal is going to come from. You don't know exactly when it's going to happen. You may go out hunting, but some of your efforts may fail. And I just wonder, when you stack that on top of them observing our inventions, reshaping that landscape, sometimes I wonder what that stress is like on them. They don't understand cars. They just see that a human is being swallowed up by it. And when they get swallowed up by it, the thing moves, but that thing doesn't smell like anything that they ever smell or anything that they ever taste. What is metal for them in nature? They have to pretty much learn what that stuff is from us. Same thing as concrete. What is concrete for them? Even though they have lived in areas with concrete, what if they came from absolute, utter, undisturbed wilderness and then they stumble upon that and they're like, what is this material? Why is it so firm? Why is it that when it rains, unlike the ground, which becomes softer and muddy, all that, why don't these other things that are part of the landscape change? And so all I know is that we invent a lot of unnecessary stresses, unnecessary problems and stressors. And I just wish that I were better about becoming aware that this is happening. Like my ability to learn and retain and recall information is affected not because I'm stupid, not because I'm uneducated, not because I'm not paying attention. It's just that my memory when I'm chill is significantly better from when I'm not calm. And sometimes it happens even with basic day to day conversations. There are words that I'm certain about when I'm writing and the place is quiet and I have my plan. Like I can write everything in one take, in one shot. But something about trying to write in an environment like work, I feel like I have never written anything with a formal format since I left school. And that's not true. So yeah, I just wish that the way that things happen didn't result in so much stress to where we see that change to the point that mentally you are barred from accessing your skills, your knowledge. Like I was just surprised that I couldn't remember anything at all while I was trying to tell my colleague about some Japanese words and symbols that I'm familiar with now. I went from knowing absolutely nothing to understanding some things, but when I was trying to tell her and summon it and show her, I couldn't remember it and she couldn't remember it, even though we have this content in common. Like we follow the same people, we know who recently posted what. I knew some pieces, she knew some pieces, but there were some pieces mutually we just could not remember. And that frustrates the shit out of me. It just took me back to how I remember being younger as a teen when all I had to do was show up to school. I thought about what is it that made me an excellent student? And when I think about it is, yeah, it's easy to be an excellent student when that's literally all that's expected of me. As a child, as a teen, all that's expected of you is to fulfill your commitments in school and do them well. But as an adult, you have to fragment yourself. And there are so many things in need of your attention that, especially if you're dealing with it alone, even if you're organized and you write things down and you plan and you have your shit together, somewhere you're going to fall short. And at least for me, I feel like I allow myself an allowance of, if I'm going to neglect something, I want to neglect a little bit of each section. I look at my life as 3 sections: personal life, home life, and work life / business life. In my personal life, it's okay. I can neglect it a little bit despite me preferring that to be 100%. Home life, same. Since it's closely related to personal life, I look at it as okay, I can let that take a little bit of a hit. Not as much as my personal life, but I'm willing to let that take a little bit of a hit. Work, I let that take as many hits as possible because at least I feel like I can rely on my autopilot to get me through it, but I don't prefer it because unfortunately, all the battle damage I'm taking from being in that place, when I come home to my personal life and my home life, inevitably my performance in those two areas is going to suffer because they do have to be linked with that business life, with the work life. And I just wish that I could fragment myself once more and be like, okay, I can have a work life without having a personal or a home life, but that's impossible. And I think that's where this challenge is coming from. How my stressed mind does not learn as well or retain things as well. It's not really a me problem, it's more of a environmental problem. And if it were a me problem, I think I would know because I would see that neglect. I would see the neglect in the form of I don't write things down anymore. I'm not mindful about my budget. I am not showing up being responsible at work and at home and in my personal life. I don't know. Bills are not getting paid, cars falling apart, anything like that. That's not happening. That's my reassurance. But sometimes I wish that I didn't have to rely on I'm not bringing problems home as my signal that, hey, I'm doing just fine. No, I want to feel fine the same way that I can observe that things are fine. And I don't know if that makes sense. I don't expect it to, but I can tell you that even if I have everything put together everywhere else, I don't like feeling that pressure, that cost of those things being maintained the way they are, because I don't feel like it's rewarding if I'm suffering from this. It takes stress, but that stress means that I gotta live like a fucking zombie who doesn't remember anything, or I cannot have a moment of a downtime because I won't be able to enjoy myself in a downtime because, again, I'm having trouble rebounding. And I hate that. So I'm having to sacrifice my retention and my recall abilities in the name of performance in other ways. Say, at work, especially being present at work, giving my max at work, which I can tell you, I have not been able to summon my max at work, both for physical reasons and for definitely mental reasons. And I'm just scared that this is that season when things start to spice up and speed up, and I'm like, oh, the demand is going to increase, but I don't think I can deliver, but we'll see. This was a little tricky for me to express because as I tried to speak, I could see the picture of what I'm trying to say, but I was having trouble describing it, especially letting it out for others to digest what I'm saying, what I'm feeling. Because I see it and I feel it, but at least I can say that all of my friends have shared something similar in their own words, in their own experiences. They shared that thing that they are experiencing physical things, and mentally they're like, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast fucking yesterday, and I eat the same thing every day, just modifying it here and there. And I'm like, girl, same. I cannot even tell you what I had for dinner last night. And I'm trying to remember, but I just can't. And you may think that's not important, but again, your ability to recall is a skill. And I think it's important. But I feel like there are too many things that require us to have that recall ability, but it's taking the place of other things. At least I don't have trouble remembering phone numbers, license plates, anything like that. But I'm just saying that I'm hating the fact that things I wouldn't normally struggle with, I'm starting to struggle with. And I want to address it, but I don't know how. So there you guys have it. That's it from me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.